So, a lot of you guys have requested that I try out the Nestor with Sentry drones, and you know me, I am more than happy to try out new things. Now, I've been using the Nestor with all types of drones, ranging from large to small, because the ship has a bonus on all of them. So it should be interesting to see how will this thing perform with sentries. I think it should be pretty good. Now, before we start, there was one guy that accused me of lying and making shit up. That the Ralsing has actually higher drone DPS than the Nestor, although I've made over 1,000 videos, and in every single test that I made, the Nestor had the higher DPS. When we look at the fitting window, that's my source basically. I build a ship, I look at the fitting, and we look at the DPS. So, I'll be stripping the ship naked, so that I can strap in the same drones that I have on the Ralsing, and then we will see which ship will have more drone DPS, and by how much, although I think we all already know that the Nestor will have higher DPS, but you know, apparently actual data is not data, but if I were to make something up, that would be probably proper data. I don't know how the logic of some people works, but let's, okay, one ship is stripped. Let's go and strip the next ship. Yeah, I'm stripping ships naked. That's true. Okay, there's the Ralsing. We'll also remove all the rigs, since the thing that we need is raw. I need both ships to be basically in the same state. So all the rigs have to be out. All the modules have to be out. No added DPS on both of these ships. The Nestor has a sleeper core, but it's not upgraded. It has only the sleeper mode, so it doesn't have any added DPS on top of it. Okay, I'll be using the offense ogres. The Nestor has 4 of them, so I'll slap 4 offense ogres in the Nestor. And we have 1481.54 DPS. Alright, nice. Now let's go and take a look at the Ralsing. I'll be using the same drones on the Ralsing. Exact same. I mean, the build doesn't exist on both ships. They're naked, only drones and the ship stats, and of course my skills. Even the implant is removed. Okay, and 1447.22. Weird higher DPS than the Nestor. It is exactly minus 31 damage higher than the Nestor, and negative DPS. Alright, this is something I've never seen in my life. Never thought I'd see negative DPS being higher DPS. Okay, let's go back to the Nestor real quick, right? Let's take a look. Maybe the 1481.54. Interesting higher DPS, higher drone DPS on the Ralsing. Well, let me open the calculator. I have to double check that. Maybe, I don't know. Since when is negative DPS better than positive? I thought the more you go into negative, the lower it is. I don't know. But apparently 1.4 thousand is higher than 1.48 thousand. Well, okay. Let's take a look at. Let me put the drones back in. Actually, maybe I messed up the drones somehow. Let's just put offense ogres again, and yeah, same DPS, 1481. And on the Ralsing, we should have 1.4 thousand. Let's see. 1440. Okay, so 31 difference if my math. But let's actually open the calculator, because you know, apparently 1447.23 is higher than 1481. Let's do the math. I don't know. Shouldn't be too hard. Let's take a look at Nestor again. And 1481.54. Yeah, weird higher DPS, weird higher drone DPS, that's for sure. Minus 34.31. Well, I was close. I said minus 31. It's actually 34.31. Alright. So, that's the difference between the drone DPS of the Nestor and the Ralsing. It's close, but the Nestor has higher DPS. And that higher DPS is even more noticeable with the bomber tactic and when the ship is built for DPS. It has 25 to 30,000 DPS, while the Ralsing has about 22 to 24,000 DPS, which is lower than the DPS that you can get on the Nestor. So yeah, there goes for the higher DPS throttle sync, I guess. Kind of funny how that is. It's like I tested this out a million times before. Kind of interesting, isn't it? Anyway, let's go and yeah, let's fit the Nestor for sniping. Now, sentries aren't exactly my favorite drones for several different reasons. They require you to be stationary, they have very bad tracking, and overall, I personally never was a fan of sentries because I prefer my ships to be more mobile. With sentries, your ship is usually stationary, and being stationary can be problematic, especially in nullsec, in lowsec, and in unknown space. Now, I'll be testing this ship out in the Wormhole land, in the Cold Edge, because, you know, I was also asked to try it out against the drones here, so it will be fun to see how it will perform. And this is the build that I would use. Now, since this is going to be primarily a sniping ship, I decided to go full DPS with it. And since I'm definitely not going to be brawling with sentries is usually not a good idea with their terrible tracking. So if you're using sentries, then long range is the way to go, and you can basically go with a DPS snipe build. It's just something similar to this, although this is more focused for DPS. And of course, I'll also give you a very good example of the aerospace tactic implant being really good with sentries. The active mode is fantastic with sentries, so you'll see what I mean when we undock. Now, I have different types of sentries. I have the sniper wardens, and I also have the guards, the offense sentries. Now, there is a big difference between all of these drones. The sniper warden, for example, have very good range. The offense sentries have shorter range but very high DPS, and you also have the other ones which also kind of have different traits. Some of them are balanced. The integrated ones have 2 damage types, and I think the integrated ones might be very good for the drones in the drone line, because the drones here use reactives. They also use they're very tough. They have very good armors, very good shields. So you definitely want to be shooting them at their resistance hull, which is thermal. I believe we'll have to take a look at that when I undock. So thermal sentries, thermal drones, that I think they should be the best to be used against the drones, because I think they have the lowest thermal resistance while they have high EM. We'll have to double check that since the numbers are very close, but I know they have one little hole. It should be thermal. We will see. Right, let's go to a large waste seeker. Now, the waste seeker anomalies have been out for quite a while. They have been translated as well, and we also had that event recently where you could basically experience co-op air systems in normal New Eden, which I think the event was pretty nice. You were able to find some pretty good modules. If you have been playing that, you're running the anomalies, you had a good chance to obtain some very juicy modules, Predator scramblers, and, you know, stuff like that. That costs a lot, so definitely worth to check out, that's for sure. And here we are. Now I'm using the offense drones, which have shorter range by default. Now, the problem with the offense sentries is the fact that the tracking is not that good. They're stationary, and if something gets too close, you might not be able to hit them. So while they do give you some really awesome DPS, the range is definitely not, you know, the range is not really up to a satisfactory, at least for me. I personally, if I were to use sentries, it would have to have over a 100 kilometer range, and these sentries technically do have a maximum range of about 90 to 100 kilometers. I think 104 is the absolute limit that you will experience with this build. And of course, this is with the implant. The implant does give you a very nice boost in the active mode. Now, the active mode does basically reduce your drone velocity, your fighter velocity, and light ship velocity, but it increases the optimal range. And, you know, when you think about it, it's actually pretty pretty good. Does give you a pretty good buff. The extra range tracking and stuff is going to be very beneficial. But the problem with that on the normal drones is the fact that it makes your drones slow, and in a lot of cases your drones will be too slow to catch a fast target, for example. So it has a drawback, but you know, it can be used on some certain ships. Now with sentries, that speed reduction isn't really going to be a problem, since sentries, well, they're stationary. They have no speed, so with sentries you only can have a buff. You don't have any drawbacks by using the implant with sentries. You have a extended range, and the speed, well, the speed is going to remain the same, since sentries are stationary and they are not moving anywhere anyway. So this active mode is really well designed for the sentries. It has use for other drones, of course, not saying that it's limited only to sentries, but the sentries will have no drawback from the active mode. The DPS is passive, and you get the DPS buff and the DPS bonus from the implant on any drone, on any fighter, and on any lighter ship, since you know it's passive and the DPS is still there whether the implant is active or not. The DPS buff will remain the same, and you don't have to worry about losing on any DPS if you don't use the active mode on the implant. Well, I mean, I'm pretty satisfied with the offense drone DPS. The one thing that I'm not satisfied with is the range. That's the only thing that I would have I guess the only thing I would complain about is the lack of range. But at the same time, you know, it is expected, since the offense drones trade range for more damage. And the same thing is also applied to all the other offense drones. Does that make them bad? Well, you know, when you think about it, it has. I mean, it has a bad thing, I guess, because the range is lower, and you don't exactly want to have a ship with poor range, but with, you know, poor tracking and poor range, basically. It is not a very good combination, if you ask me. Doesn't mean that it's bad, though. That doesn't mean that the offense drones are bad. I think the offense drones are pretty good, pretty strong, and there are ships much cheaper than this one that can pull off some very good DPS numbers. No, the DPS should be about 8,000 DPS with sentries with this current build, which I think is pretty good, pretty awesome. 8,000 DPS on a loggy. I mean, loggy. The Nestor is a bit of everything, to be honest. The Nestor is everything, honestly. It's a loggy, it's a guardian, it's everything. Everything you can imagine, except a cover tops. The Nestor isn't a cover tops. That's the only thing that the Nestor can't really do. The Nestor can't cloak. Well, yet. Although Black Ops battleships are not that far off, honestly. They have already been announced a while ago, so we will see what will happen. I mean, I am definitely going to be flying them. 100%. I'm flying the Black Ops ships when they are released. Maybe in December. Maybe they'll be launched in December alongside Kalevala Expanse. I think that's what's going to happen here. I don't know. That's just what I think will happen. We will see. Of course, there's a lot of things that. So far, when it comes to guessing stuff, I have been accurate. But we will see. We will see, I guess. Now, let me swap the drones real quick, because I want to use both types of drones. I have to say, the offense drones are, I mean, I don't know, it felt a bit dangerous to use them. It really felt a bit dangerous to use them in Co-op Edge, at least, because in Co-op Edge you have to be careful, not only around the Co-op Edge ships, but you also have to be careful on players. So I wouldn't really recommend to use the offense drones in Co-op Edge because of, well, obviously no range is one big thing. I mean, technically I guess you can get range if you change the build, but the sniper drones seem to have much better range by default, so I would probably go with the, if you're going with a sniper build, definitely the sniper, any of the sniper drones, sniper warriors for example, that would probably be a good idea. Well, I see a problem. I still wouldn't, I think I wouldn't be using the sentries in Cold Edge, just because the ship has to be stationary. Any Stratios that comes close to you can tackle you. That's the problem. No matter where you position yourself, a cloaky Stratios can get to you, and that's why I would say that the sentries aren't really a good choice for Co-op Edge. I mean, I guess if you have a home system, Co-op Edge home system that has cameras on the wormholes, then I guess it's not going to be a big problem. Then you can, and then I guess you can, because you have some form of, I guess, safety. But if you're going in completely solo, completely randomly in unknown territory, without any info on what's ahead, then I would say you just stick with the normal drones, honestly, because the normal drones are going to be much more beneficial if you get tackled. Now, usually you would get tackled by a Stratios, core top ships. They are quite common in Co-op Edge, and they will also be quite common in the upcoming actual wormhole space. So from my personal experience, from what I've seen, yeah, definitely stick to normal drones. At least if you are going completely randomly in unknown systems or in unknown regions and stuff like that. But I have to say, I do like the range on these things. I think they should hit up to 250 kilometers. They should be able to, but you have to be careful about the drone control range, because the sentries are a bit, let's say, a little bit funky when it comes to how the range performs. So I just try to keep them within the optimal range, because you don't want to have some weird stuff happening, like having range but the drones refusing to attack. It's a very weird thing that I've seen happening. Players been telling me that, and also one of the reasons why I personally don't really use sentries. Doesn't mean, I mean, just because I don't use them doesn't mean that they're bad. Sentries have their use, they're good. I just am not much of a fan of sentries. But you know, that's me. If you like to use sentries, that's fine. They're good. Just because I don't like to use something doesn't mean it's bad. That's what I'm trying to say. So, but so from what I'm seeing here, they seem to be, I mean, now at least they're performing really well, and this is with the implant. This implant definitely does help a lot. And I've been also asked to share my experience with sentries with the bombard tactic implant. That's a very interesting one. Sentries with the bombard tactic implant. Technically speaking, that should be very dangerous, but the main problem with that is it is very situational. Maybe in a fleet, I guess. But from what I've seen from the fleets that are roaming around, I don't really see them using sentries. Most of them use normal large drones, or depending on the ship, if they're using a medium ship, they're using the normal drones. And it brings the question, are we ever going to see sentries on a cruiser class ship? Like, for example, the Ishtar can slap sentries. I think we are slowly going towards that direction. I mean, we've had all sorts of weird ships added to the game. I call them weird. They're not weird. I mean, Black Ops ships are also on the way, so we will see what's going to come after them. I remember also saying that the next ships on the menu are going to be perhaps tactical destroyers. Well, Black Ops battleships are coming instead. That's also one thing to consider. I mean, we will see what will happen. Everything can happen, honestly. Anything is possible, so... One second. Okay, yeah, I was a bit distracted making a thumbnail in the background here, based on the November 23rd update. There's some interesting things coming up. Anyway, I mean, I have to say, so far, the sniper wardens seem... I mean, their damage output stuff. I can feel the damage output being lower. At least it does feel like that. But it could just be me. But it does seem to be a little bit lower than the DPS that the offense ones would do, which is to be expected. The offense ones do have a bit more DPS to them. Now at this range, at this distance, you can actually, this is something I was doing a couple times already, but you can actually orbit around the drones, so that if you're being shot at by something, you have a higher chance of evading it. But the Nestor, as we all know, it's a pretty big ship. It's a huge ship. It's one of the fastest battleships as well. And also, there was one guy saying the Ralsink is actually faster than the Nestor. Well, it's not. The Ralsink doesn't go almost 3 kilometers per second with a micro overdrive. The Nestor does. The Nestor is the fastest battleship in the game at the moment. It used to be faster though. The Nestor used to go much faster, but unfortunately, for some reason, I think they nerfed the speed of the I don't know when. It was a ninja nerf, honestly. But the Nestor isn't as fast as it used to be. It's still the fastest, but it's not as fast as it used to be. Which kind of sucks, I guess, but... You know, it is what it is, I guess, so... It's still a good ship, that's what matters in the end. I'm taking all damage at this range. And the sniper sentries, the sniper wardens in this case, I mean, you can use any sentry that you like, honestly. I personally would probably go with the wardens, although it really depends from, you know, target. Depends from what you also like to use, and you know, things like that.
Shield damaged.
Although I think liking something or disliking something doesn't play that much of a role, because in the end you should pick the weapon that's going to be able to counter your target. So if your target has a hull on thermal, you should add it with something that does thermal damage, and so on. I think that's something that we all already know. I believe that's something that we all already know, so I don't have to repeat that, I guess. I hope I don't have to. Although I wouldn't be surprised if I have to. It's been a ongoing, thing. So, what are my, like, would I use sentries over large drones? Well, I would say if you like AFK playstyle, let's say, sentries are pretty much really good for AFK, clearing AFK gameplay basically. In high sec, you could easily just use sentries and it would run really well, you would have no problems with it. And it would also be generally speaking safe. Because in high sec you don't have to worry about pirates, you don't have to worry about you don't have to worry about much. Only you have to worry not to get jumped by a random NPC that gets too close, since if they get too close it might get a bit dangerous. But if you maintain a good distance it shouldn't be a problem, since these drones would just clear everything without a problem. In low sec I wouldn't be using sentries, because as I already mentioned, lots of pirates, PvP is quite active, and any battleship with sentries is usually a very easy target for any pirate. Any cruiser can just speed tank your sentries. And even if you launch the sentries at one point and then you orbit around, right, it's still not going to have enough tracking to hit a cruiser. Although I guess you can technically position them in such a way, but it just takes way too much effort and way too much time to position sentries in such a way that you have good tracking even if something is at 0 from you. But again, that just takes a lot of effort to just set up the drones so that you can do that. It's much simpler and much easier to just launch the large or medium drones and clear the mission with them. The medium and large drones have a higher chance to destroy a pirate than sentries, since from what I've seen, most of the ships that I've destroyed with sentries were very easy targets, because they had absolutely no chance to defend themselves, since their drones simply didn't have any tracking. Orbiting at 0, even if you're like quad webbed and scrambled, you are going to be able to speed tank sentries, because that's just how bad of tracking they have. And if you think the offense ones would do better, well, not exactly, because they have short range and still horrible tracking. It's like using Macariel's artillery cannons at 5 kilometers. That's basically the level of bad tracking we're looking at. It's just not going to hit. Maybe if they're like completely stationary, if you have serpentine webs on them, maybe then the sentries would hit at close range. But from what I've seen, from my experience, from all the ships that we've destroyed, from all the ships I've destroyed that were using sentries, all of them were very, very easy targets. The only weapon that was doing damage in that case was the battleship's main weapon, the battleship's highest level weapons. Usually missiles, long range missiles, rapid missiles, they hit, but they don't do much damage. Meanwhile, sentries didn't do any damage on my ship. So that would be, I guess that would be what I think about the sentries. So overall, it's a very interesting weapon system, definitely. Would be nice if we receive cruisers that can equip sentry drones. Would definitely be a bit interesting and would add I guess a new dimension to the game. Well, I say new dimension, it's definitely going to be something new. It is not as, it's not the assault battle cruiser with large missiles type of idea. By the way, that never happened. The large assault battle cruiser with missiles, with large missiles, has never been released. Which is maybe a good thing, maybe a bad thing. I personally didn't really mind having or not having the ship. It's the same thing to me, honestly. If we did receive it, I'd be fine with it. If we didn't receive it, I'd also be fine with it. And we didn't receive it, so yeah, I'm fine with that. But overall, Definitely looking forward to check out and test out more ships. I mean, the Nestor is definitely going to catch a lot more popularity as time goes on, because when we receive actual wormhole space, this thing is, I mean, even now the Nestor is actually, you'll be surprised, but the Nestor is actively used in college. I've seen a bunch of them. I have seen a bunch of them. I have seen a couple of them enter wormhole, exit wormholes. They're used. They're very good wormhole ships, even now in the current limited Cobalt Edge system regions that we have. And the main thing, the most important thing I would say is that you don't yeet around with the ship, I guess, in these systems, because I mean, I see it around. We will see. Maybe it's going to be the first Black Ops ship. I wouldn't even be surprised if the developers just decide to give the Nestor +1 low slot and +1 cloaking device. I mean, if you can just cloak, it would be the best ship in the game, hands down. And yeah, I forgot to show you the nanocore. Let's open the nanocore window here for a second. Yeah, there we go. No damage boost on the nanocore, not even upgraded. So yeah, I left this on the end on purpose. I just wanted to see if there is, you know, any salt. We will see if there is any salt. If you see something stupid in the comments down below, you know that the guy didn't watch until the end. So yeah. With that being said, hope you guys enjoyed this little run with the Nestor. Lovely ship, honestly. And if you want to try one out, then I would say, yeah, definitely a very nice ship to fly. And with that being said, if you want to support me, feel free to like and subscribe. And with that being said, stay safe, fly safe, and as always, I'll see you next time.